Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. On this Tuesday, the 11th of April, we're ready to kick this one off. We're here weekdays at 1 o'clock talking about the latest in Michigan sports. Got a fun day today. I was daydreaming a little bit. I just saw some breaking news, not to do with Michigan, but with the Lions trading their former number 3 overall pick, Jeff Okudah from Ohio State, to the Atlanta Falcons for a 5th round pick. So you make the selection that high and you got to move on from a 5th round pick. And if you're a Lions fan, you just pause for a second and you say, hey, it wasn't this regime that picked them. It was the last one. They were a bunch of bozos. Things are looking pretty good for the Lions. So let's go. LFG. And I think that's the way the Lions fans will look at it. And I think that's probably the way they should look at it. So bye-bye to Jeff Okudah. Took me a moment to process that one. Today, you might think about, well, what is the latest in Michigan sports? Well, we get some hardware that has been handed out in Ann Arbor to some individuals. And we will go over, we get some pictures. And we'll talk about those awards and maybe one in the future. But last week it was Mark on the feedback, and we always take your feedback here on the show. You can type up something, whether you have an opinion, whether you have a question, whether you're just following along with the show and you just want to get your thoughts in there. We take them in real time. It's an addition. It's a welcome addition to this broadcast. You never know, like, you know what I'm thinking. I'm sitting here telling you, but you get a chance for everyone else. If there wasn't that, I might just be sitting here talking about nobody watching Michigan's non-conference schedule, Ohio State system quarterback, some of the things that we were discussing, arguing about yesterday. And, now here we are today. But last week, somebody had asked about J.J. McCarthy going through his reads. And, as I just looked back at my initial viewing of the spring game, there wasn't a whole lot. McCarthy played in the first half, played a couple series. What did he end up playing? It looks like 4 series. And it was a mixed bag, but, it was J.J. McCarthy, and there were some really nice throws and there were a couple bad ones, but off the top of my head, I couldn't remember if he had, gone through his reads and everything else. So I took the majority of his snaps, and I thought that we would play him back, and we'd just talk about J.J. McCarthy and, where you're at with the Michigan junior quarterback, as now he heads in as the undisputed starter. Second year as a starter. He'll have a full spring under his belt. He does now. Remember last year he didn't have that spring. So without further ado, we'll just go and let's just see what comes up as we talk about J.J. McCarthy as we bring up the spring game. There he is on the field. This first series, if you wanted to be, I don't know why you'd want to be, I was going to say overly critical or even critical. You look at this first series and say, whoa, what's he doing? But, it's, we can talk about this as we go. I was thinking about JJ and I was talking about him with, somebody today. I've got like no issues with JJ McCarthy. This first pass that he throws of the spring game is over the middle into double coverage. I think he'll go back and look at the film. You don't want to throw that. I mean, he was surrounded. There really wasn't a spot to throw the football there. I think when they go back and evaluate that throw, that particular rep, they'll say, JJ, you don't want to squeeze that one in there. You don't want to throw that one. That one is too dangerous, so that's where you would go, from there. But overall, as I talk about JJ McCarthy, listening to Devin Gardner during the game, Gardner at the one point mentioned, that McCarthy could get better with his feet, where he's, at quarterback, like, and that's a good critique from a guy who played the position and then, watched JJ McCarthy. This is something like if you had more of this, if there was like if he was turnover prone from last year, he throws an interception here. The ball just comes out of his hand and floats, and he throws a pick. Now, if this was somebody who he hadn't seen in game action or had a propensity to turn the ball over, you'd say, this is worrisome. Here's the one. He's back there. Oh no! First he throws. I'm sorry. He gets a completion to Hibner over here. Takes a look, looks left, knows he's there, and just throws a dart. I mean, this is nice. Let's see his feet. Wide base there. It'd be interesting to hear Devin what he says about that wide base, but accurate, puts it right on the money. And now we have 2 plays before he throws that pick. Because wasn't back in over and over again. But that's where I sit. We just sit here and watch a little JJ McCarthy. He's the best quarterback that Michigan has had since Drew Henson. He just quarterbacked an undefeated team and took them to the college football playoff and beat Ohio State on the road. And then he played his best game of the year at Ohio State. Those are the things you like, click, click, click. If there were some other things in there, like if it was not his best game against Ohio State, and you'd look and say, well, on the road, or because the majority of the season you liked McCarthy and how he protected the ball, and obviously Michigan winning, and Michigan was playing to its running game. Again, there was just the one missing part to his game, and that was the downfield passing game. And he was close to connecting on some of those, but it was something to keep an eye on. It's like until he's able to do it, until he's able to actually connect on a few of these downfield passes, it's going to be something that's going to be that other teams are obviously going to notice. There's other teams that are going to play to that, and but then he picked a fine time against OSU. So here's the one, it sails out of his hand. And he misses his receiver. And when you do that, you throw it over there, you can throw an interception. And again, if this was another quarterback in another situation and a guy that was turnover prone, you'd say, hey, what the heck's going on here? The guys on the broadcast were saying maybe, and it looked like the defensive back did reach over and turn him a little bit because that had something to do with it. It didn't look like his hand gets hit. It just slips out. No, it was a little cold, and it was, those are excuses. Like his elbow flared out a little bit. Whatever the reason is, you can't have too much of that going on when you're JJ McCarthy. But he really took care of the ball well last year in terms of not throwing it to the other team. He was a little wobbly in that Maryland game. He had to adjust the speed of the Big Ten. He did that by the second half, but he only threw that interception at Indiana and then against Penn State in the regular season, and then one against Purdue when he had all day in the Big Ten title game. And then, of course, the 2 pick sixes in the college football semifinal that we'll have to talk about. And that's where a lot of people went, everybody was watching. We were talking yesterday about the non-conference, and I was saying not everybody was watching Michigan play, against UConn and Hawaii. And there was a lot of pushback like, oh no, everybody's watching Michigan all the time. And, somebody sent me a tweet, was showing me the numbers of millions of viewers that were watching, Michigan last year. And I had felt like, those were a little more surprising than I thought, just how many people were watching. My thought is that it's like me, I'm going to watch every Michigan game, but let's say it's another, top 25 team or a top 10 team. I'll watch that team. We'll just say it's Alabama. If Alabama is playing, a team that that they're going to beat by 50, am I going to watch that game? Probably not. I'm going to look for the most competitive game that's out there. Now, I'll look to some Big Ten, but then if there was a top 25 matchup, now maybe there wasn't another game in any of those windows, Michigan, Colorado State. Maybe there wasn't a top 25 matchup. Maybe there wasn't nothing else. And it was just all lopsided games. That first week, we knew Ohio State was, who were they playing? Was it Notre Dame last year? Everybody was waiting until night. So maybe the first two games, there was nothing else attractive. So I was like, yeah, okay, Michigan. So, I could see that part when it comes down to it. Let's get the feedback and see where the people are at. Here's Richard was talking about the win aided on that throw. Mark talking about a Rick Leach Rose Bowl overthrow. And the overthrow seems like a fluke to Andres. Here's blank. It's that his feet can be inconsistent. That's what Devin does not like. A lot of quarterbacks have had inconsistent feet. It's more of a nitpick. But yes, having feet pointed incorrectly can affect the accuracy. Yeah, well, the position is evolving. Even when Devin Gardner was playing, you wanted to be such a fundamentalist, and even somebody just as an observer of QBs, I wanted quarterbacks with their shoulders, their feet. I didn't want them throwing off platform, and it wasn't until Patrick Mahomes started doing all this. It used to be if you were rolling out to the right and you threw back behind the receiver, you could 100 times out of 100 times, whoever the color analyst was saying, you never want to throw that. You don't throw that one. And then Mahomes started doing it, and then they'd say, you don't want to do that unless you're Patrick Mahomes. And then, and then now you see that it has changed. Mahomes is a transformative football player. When you have somebody that brings something to the game, and then it changes the game. Since Mahomes has been in, things are different how we evaluate the QB. So yeah, it used to be, you don't want to be dropping down sidearm. You don't want to do all this. And then there were a few of the great ones that could do it. I remember Matt Stafford would do some of it, and I would complain about it because one, the Lions weren't winning, and two, his numbers weren't all that hot. And yet, the Lion fans would get all upset. When Aaron Rodgers does it, nobody complains. It's like, well, Aaron Rodgers is winning. He's going to the playoffs. So if you're winning, and you're doing something that is off center, you're going to get a little bit of a break there. But yeah, no, this is a good point about the feet, and that's the thing. Like we are going to nitpick. When you have like McCarthy is the best Michigan quarterback in 20 years. McCarthy could be a first round draft pick. He could be a top 5 pick next year. And so when you're doing that, I mean, look at how much we're talking about Bryce Young, and look how much we're going through, the different quarterbacks and saying, oh, but what about this? And, he's got that. That's what we do. We nitpick. It reminds me of, it's been a long time since I've watched like the, what do they even call that? Like Miss USA, they come walking across here's Miss Columbia. And I'd be like, nah, Miss Columbia. No, we're talking about, we're talking about models and supermodels, and this point we're talking about quarterbacks. Maybe you don't like the comparison there, and there at the last second, I'm not sure I liked it. So let's move on. Richard, we had a couple nice basketball portal pickups. Hope for Howard yet? Yeah, Richard, I don't know. Did you miss the show yesterday? We talked about that guy. We talked about the players. Actually, going back to Friday, we talked about both of those players, and then yesterday, I talked about both of them. I do have one guy, speaking of the portal. Actually, I'm going to have 2 names for you to think about. One is a guy that you're very familiar with, Hunter Dickinson, the small, slim chance, it was put in the rumor category last week that he could come back to Michigan. That seems to still be out there. A very slim chance about Hunter. I know, could he come back? Yeah. You would think, though, that the fans have moved on and he's moved on. So it doesn't really make any sense to you because you've already, you had that part of you and then you released it and then it was like, goodbye. He's back. You're like, wait a second. But it is something, at least that minor, it's not 100% done. And then the other guy, there's a big from Tennessee that you want to keep an eye on, who seems that he's close with the potential of Michigan being able to land him. Now there has to be somebody on the squad to leave or have a scholarship removed, which could happen. I mean, there's plenty of names to go over there. Olivier Kamwu from Tennessee. That's the name. Olivier Kamwu from the Volunteers, played last year. He's a 6'9". He's a post player. Now, he can go out and shoot some threes. He did that a little bit, but for the most part, I watched the video of him. I watched about 10 minutes of video. Actually, I was going to say 90%, but I don't remember seeing any of the video that I watched had him shooting outside. All 10 minutes were him down to the post. 80% of it was him back to the basket post moves, and then a couple other face ups and fadeaways and blocks and good passes. But he is a back to the basket 6'9" post player. But he had an array of moves. It wasn't like he is some giant guy. He's actually got more of a slender build, good footwork, and good low post player, somebody that you can get down there, throw it into, and you can look at him to make a move. So somebody to keep an eye on there for Richard. Let's look. Andre says there's something he was said, though, about being able to spit the ball out accurately from different angles. Well, there is now. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for it. Accuracy is the name of the game now. So you could take it out there, and actually, this is Mahomes. He's throwing it underhand. You can go out there and take it and do whatever you want. If you're able to throw a very catchable pass and you're able to put it on the receiver, there's a lot of guys that can throw the ball to the moon, but it's about accuracy. Again, it'll go back to the analogy we just had, the Masters. There's a lot of guys that can walk up there with that driver and, they can just hammer it. 350 yards now. Stripe it. Boom. But, there's a difference. Do you want to hit 350 and then have it shooting over, behind the trees? Or, 300 striping it down the middle? It's a little bit different. I mean, the 300. It looks like McCarthy's can go 350 and he can hit it down the middle. Now you're talking. Let's take some more feedback. Jenkins hit the ball. Yeah. Well, maybe my eyes aren't so good. Like I was saying, I saw an arm go in there. They did mention in the broadcast, I couldn't tell, Ty. So I'll take your word for it. Richard's like me. He's not worried. I mean, there's no reason. Like, are you going to get worried after the spring game? There seemed to be a little bit of worry after the championship game of throwing the 2 pick sixes. JJ, we just mentioned his strong arm and his footwork and everything else. Going back and watching those interceptions, he did stare the receiver down, and he loved his arm so much that he thought, you know what, I could just whip that ball in there, and I'm going to be able to hit my receiver, even over here on the far hash. I like my arm so much, and I'm going to be able to zip it out there. And he did that, and then the DB made a tremendous play on it, being able to jump that. But it's almost to his credit that he was able to go back there again and say, you know what, I believe in my arm. I'm over here, and it was the same thing. I see my guy. I see the defensive back. I think that I can throw it in there. It's the big stage, but I believe I'm not going to be deterred by what just happened. The guy making a great play. I'm gonna do it again. And then he threw another pick six. And working through that, now a great learning experience. But the way that he was able to take care of the ball during the season, you go through that, even though he was tremendous. He was just a first year starting quarterback. And sometimes you don't always have to do this, but a lot of times you do have to go through some of those hard knocks. And why wouldn't you just keep trusting your arm until somebody takes it back to the house and then you say, oh, and then you come back and say, I could do it again. Now, he's got to, something to think about there. Gladiator says JJ is going to be fine. Spring ball is not the Big Ten championship, my man. Go blue. No question. Look, I think we're all in the choir right now. We just watched the tape. I'll say it. I'm going to say it probably a couple more times. Michigan's in the best spot that they've been at quarterback in over 20 years. They just had a quarterback go out there as a first-time starter and show tremendous poise, great leadership, and he took care of the ball, and he led Michigan to an undefeated season. So, yeah, we are nitpicking. There's no doubt. Undefeated season, we can just sit here and, but we are going to talk about some of the throws. I mean, you can watch it and talk about it. Everybody watches Alabama. 87% of Alabama residents. Yeah, I think most people in Michigan. I mean, if there was no Michigan State, it would probably be close to that right here. But you got the Spartan fans that you might have to deal with. You know what I'm talking about? Here's RJ. He wonders if Campbell will develop JJ better than Weiss was. There's no question he has all the tools, but to be an elite lacks consistent fundamental output. Well, that's a good question about Campbell. He does have a new quarterbacks coach. Weiss was quarterback coach and co-offensive coordinator. Now Sharon Moore makes the call. Will that be different with Sharon, but then working with Campbell? Campbell worked with him last year. And I'll go back to the spring game again when Devin Gardner said he was at a practice in the offseason and he was talking with Fred Jackson and he was talking about J.J. McCarthy. And Jackson said, if you want to know what makes I'm paraphrasing, and I'm not even, he might not even have said exactly this, but you get the idea. You want to know what makes J.J. McCarthy tick? You talk to that guy over there with the visor on. And he was talking to, at that point, an analyst in Campbell. So it's a good point. How will he do in terms of, further development? And, you have to think that JJ probably gave him the thumbs up when there was an opening there for quarterback coach and all of that. Mark's speculating on Dickinson going to Kentucky. Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of top teams that he could go to. So maybe. They also lose a lot. When you look at all of those, I mean, there's a few. Go to Kansas, go to Gonzaga, go to Kentucky. I mean, those all sound like great spots. Those are, basketball schools. Those are schools, that you think you're going to be able to get into the NCAA tournament. It's just a small smidge that it's enough that it's out there, that it stayed there. And that's why I continue to at least put it out there. All right, let's see. I wonder what's a little bit more JJ. What was this one? In the second series, he threw a nice pass down the sideline to Cornelius Johnson. In fact, we have that right here as we sit here and talk. So let's go ahead and watch JJ throw a nice pass here on his second series. As we're talking about it. This is the spring game. Steps up in the pocket, rocket over to the right. Everything to like about that throw right there. It's not to like. Kojo could be his number one target. Let's see. JJ looks right. Steps up in the pocket, avoids the rush, throws a nice, very catchable, accurate pass out there to the right. I like that one. I think you do too. Let's get to there's some interesting things in this, the third and fourth series, to be sure. And so for that, let's just gear it up. We'll go to now the third series for J.J. McCarthy in the spring game. All right. I'm going to get the ball back. Here comes number 9. Third series of the game. I got a little bonus coverage of Tuttle. Let's see, does fumble, interception? I think INT. Ooh, man. Keyshawn Bennett smacked him around there. Jim Scarcelli said keep an eye on Keyshawn Bennett. That was a Zeke Berry INT to get J.J. McCarthy the ball back. Here he is. Here's J.J. Fires it over there to the right. Ooh, Christian Dickinson with a drop. Don't like those. I like those drops. Here's a couple interesting ones if you were, and this gets into a little bit of probably some spring game stuff where it's like really, you have to guess a little bit. You don't really know what the outcome would be because you've got Josiah Stewart, who chases McCarthy on two of these. I think they end up registering a sack on one of them. But could McCarthy have run the ball and got forward back to the line of scrimmage? On one of these, I think Stewart, he was coming in on a flat plane, would have decked him. And yeah, I think he was going down. If it wasn't Stewart, it was big old Grant. He was going to smash him up there. So that was a sack. He could have thrown the ball away there. He was out of the pocket to avoid the sack, but I think they end up giving him a sack. It's either this one or the next one because it's kind of the same, similar type thing. McCarthy's good enough and fast enough where a lot of these that you're thinking about where, he's not live, that potentially, he would dive down. Do we get a replay of this one or is this one's live? Yeah, here's the next one out of the same deal. Being chased around, and I think they ended up calling him that he would have been down there. I don't know if I like that call, actually, looking at it again. But let's see. Maybe on a different angle here. Getting buzzed. Here's Stewart after him. Then get close. I mean, I should have let that one go. But, I mean, look, you get close enough, you don't want to play around. It's actually a pretty accurate throw on the run, whipping the ball. That's almost behind him. That almost qualifies as a Mahomes type throw on the run, zinging it out there, split legged in the air, down the field. What are we talking about there, right? Let's more feedback as we talk about McCarthy, J.J. McCarthy. Mark says yards after catch seems to be a key NFL stat now for quarterback. Turn 3 to 4 into 6 to 9, not 50-yard bombs were likely that the defensive back stumbled. I don't agree with it. I think for receivers, yards after catch seems to be a key NFL stat, but not for quarterbacks. I think the stat for quarterbacks is yards per attempt. Now, if you're talking about the NFL, I mean, that's what they want to know because that tells you more like yards after catch. Okay, great. You threw a little 5-yard smoke screen to somebody, took it 70 yards. Fine. We want to know about, are you driving the ball down the field? Yards per attempt, Mark, is the one. OT saying Jenkins did not hit the ball. It was a bad throw. That's what I thought, OT. You and I saw it the same way. Although when you're in there, he did look like he grabbed him a little bit before, which could have, affected him a little bit. But, here we go. Mark referencing Gardner again, saying both basically were footwork errors. Seems late in the season for that kind of mistake. What's the alternative? Oh, he's talking about, I think now the semifinal. No sense in yelling at a quarterback. Errors likely pretty obvious of how wrong they were. Yeah, maybe. Like if I'll take your word for it. I haven't heard. I mean, I don't know if Devin Gardner comments on every single thing. Maybe he's on local radio, and people still listen to that sometimes. And if he's there, I could see why you might want to do that. But yeah, I mean, I would take his word if he was commenting on the footwork. But again, when it comes down to footwork, and now you're sitting out there, there was also the part that he was a long ways away and he was looking at his receiver and he was staring him down. And he looked at him and made the judgment, like, I love my arm. I can throw that ball there. I don't care that the defensive back's right there. I can make that throw. He had done it all year long. his entire college career. Nobody had stepped in front of one like that and took it back. And then it happened. So, and then, he had the guts to do it again. I can say it was stupid, but I think both of those a learning experience about your arm, how much you love it, what other guys can do, and what else can you do now except say use that as a learning experience, right? Let's get to the fourth series. Fourth series takes us to 44 minutes. Let's see, it took me about 5 seconds to get there. It's about 5 seconds. Let's do it. Fourth series, there's McCarthy. This is the one. So, now we're into where we might go overboard. Oh, JJ, a run in the spring game, a design run. How about that? I like to see JJ McCarthy run the ball. I want to see JJ McCarthy run the ball more. I think that the taking his game to the next level is doing it with his feet. I thought he waited in the semifinal to run the ball. He was pretty effective doing that. We saw how effective he was against Ohio State, especially down in the red zone. I think that's taking it to the next level is McCarthy being able to run the football a little bit more. So as much as we might not have liked that first pass or the one that sailed on him, that he ended up throwing an interception, there's two passes here that you just watch, and there you go. There you go. Now, you watch a lot of quarterbacks. You watch a lot of football. Being able to make this throw, these are NFL throws. That's a zinging it right in there. I go back a lot, to a lot of the NFL games for about 11 years going down the Ford Field, whether it was Stafford, whether it was Carson Palmer sitting out there, and you watch these guys make these long throws. It's a lot longer than you think. And here he goes back to back with another one. These are NFL throws that he's making right here. And these are the things that you get excited about if you're a Michigan fan. And he's just pumping that one out there. That's great location. That ball has to travel a long time. He's looking out there at the DB and he's saying, I can still make this on this hash. I'm going to pump this ball over there with the defensive back right there. That's big time ball right now. There's not every quarterback. Is there 25 quarterbacks in college football that are able to make that throw? He's one of them. So, tremendous what you're looking at there. And it was back-to-back throws. But, that wasn't his best throw. His best throw ends up being, I get a little one to the running back here. Sometimes those are the difficult ones to, because you gotta take a little bit off. It's not all just heaving it down there, checking it down to the running back. Those back-to-back throws were pretty nice. The real nice one, though, is coming up, and it's the one that has to do with the touchdown. This is one that we could sit here and we want to argue online. It's a little argument. I want you to tell me if you think that this pass should have been thrown. I want you to tell me if you think it was pass interference. There's a lot of things going on here that I want you to tell me. It ends up being a defensive pass interference. But I don't think JJ should have thrown this, and then I don't think it was defensive pass interference. So I think he gets let off the hook here. But let's see. That was my first inclination. Let's go back and watch it. Feet tangled up. That's not going to get called every time. That would be my argument. My other argument would be that that Grant is probably a no play anyways, because Kenneth Grant could have taken McCarthy and picked him up. And of course, he wouldn't have wanted to use his full weight. He would have knocked him out of the game. And you're not doing that in the spring game. Yeah. Is that a DPI on Pollard? I'm going to say no. And they got a break there. You're going to get those breaks. And in the spring game with McCarthy and everything else, but he didn't know that they were going to get their feet tangled. and that there was going to be a defensive pass interference there. So I don't think he should have thrown that ball. One, I wonder what they talk about in the tape room. Here's where Harbaugh's like, yeah, we're going to take the DPI. We're going to take the pass interference. We're going to tell you what happens here. We'll get another look at it where Kenneth Grant, I think what Grant wants to do is grab him, put him to the ground, and then, take all 360 pounds of himself and get out of the way. Maybe his arm, making sure that he's getting him down to the ground there. But, this is one of those that could make things look a lot different and make you feel a lot better about everything. But go ahead, give your opinion. Do you think the referees called this exactly right? Yes. Oh yeah, defensive pass interference. There you go. DPI, 24. Miles Pollard, my guy. First down. Let's get the replay again. Oh, we get a personal foul? Oh, this is a personal foul. A little bit of half the distance, too. Can we get a replay? Or do I have to go back and replay it? A couple things to watch here. Grant could have knocked McCarthy into next week, and he held up. Pollard just had his feet tangled up with the receiver, and then it ends up being an interception. So I guess we're not going to get a replay unless I do it myself, which is something I can do. And I am going to put it back there so we can watch it again, just so we can all, I don't know if it's really arguing about it or just back there to Denard. Let's see if anybody's playing along here. Let's get a good look at it. JJ could have been killed by Grant. That's the first piece. Yeah. I think I've got that one right. Shouldn't have thrown it. Not a pass interference. I think he could have unloaded that one. He would have just taken the hit. I'm not sure that Grant would have. It's hard to know if he was holding up and you wanted him to. So those are the kind of things that you just don't know. I think you're right about this one. I think, Mark, you're right. A friendly call for the quarterback. Andres thought it was defensive pass interference. Oh, you didn't like how his feet were just sitting right there? Right. You got to throw that one differently. We have hold versus the white rule. The Harbaugh made the call. Let's think if that was Tuttle. Let's see, Mark making a further point. And what is it? DB, it looked like moving to catch the ball. That should have been a spring game sack. All right. Yeah, a lot of different parts there. I don't know. There was so much to go to. Let's get to my favorite throw of the game, and it comes right at the end of the last series that JJ's in there for. And let's see. We got a throw or two more to get to. There it is. I think it was Richard talking about O'Leary, and I think we get a little bit more O'Leary action here. O'Leary was had a hell of a game for a spring game. JJ liked him, and so did Davis Warren. Nice. Get him down there. Let's get it to now the best throw of the game, which ends up, he only played a half. And it ended up being his last pass. And what I like about this one, I'm just going to go on memory here. JJ does a little split leg roll. Like, I want Gardner, if he's always talking about, again, and I like, quarterbacks, former players and all that, talking about, hey, you got to have precision, footwork, and everything else. Tell me a little bit about this one, Devin. Tell me about the footwork here and what we're looking at. Because what I see is a rolling quarterback, split leg, bailing out on the way back, throwing it on the money into the end zone for a touchdown. This is J.J. McCarthy, ladies and gentlemen. This is not footwork. This is a ball player. This is why you feel great about Michigan. You feel great about him because you watched him last year. But then even in the spring game, you remember that he has this in him. Let's take a look at this play. Here's McCarthy. He's rolling to the right. He just whips it out there. Woo! That's nothing but arm talent to Thaw, who he puts it in there on him. That defensive back was sitting there spinning like a top. McCarthy making that throw. You can't touchdown. Michigan, and Thaw's hiding behind the goalpost. Until you see this little throw in, here it is. They're going to slow it down. That's not his first read. That's just him. What is that? Just climbing the ladder, walking up into the pocket. What is that? That just looked like great arm talent to me. Do we get one more? A little. Honestly, I'd never heard of Thaw before this game, but I know who he is now. Let's say we go back. They should probably play it one more time, shouldn't they? J.J. McCarthy at the end of the half, coming up with that play. One more time, boys, girls, fans. 10 seconds to go. Come on, man. You guys not going to give me one more for Thaw? Different angle? Don't you have one from like the back of the end zone? I don't know how many cameras do I want at the spring game. I'm thinking I might get one more angle on this. Maybe from the end zone. Maybe not. Yeah, I was just talking about JJ, about the best throw of the game. Orgy did make a nice throw. That was the one where Jair Hill came up and made the tackle. Andre phrasing, Dennis. Hand over the top of your face. I'm not really sure what your complaint is there, Andre. You'll have to. You didn't like my phrasing. That's why you're putting your hand over your face. Did I say something like kind of a double entendre or something like that? Which I know those kind of things can make people laugh. And in some cases, it freaks people out. I try not to do things like that. So you'll have to tell me why you're putting your hand over your face like that. While we watch McCarthy, let's watch it one more time, shall we? Let's get it going. You telling me account 22, the orgy throw was better than that one? That one looked pretty good. Stay off the field. We'll get another look at it. I like that this is not his first option. And then the other part I like about that, there was not a lot of lower body. I don't know, like you'd like lower body being used to throw the football. That was all shoulder and arm there, it looked like. Mark giving bitter pills, but honest. Let's see what the bitter pill is from Mark. I'd say no chance JJ plays clean all year. Just need 25 to 30 touchdowns for the inevitable 4 to 5 interceptions. Well, that might sound, that's like kind of saying like, it's really going to be tough for Michigan to go undefeated because you're not going to play your best game every week of the season. And you're bound to lose a game or two, even if you're a top team. Except you go back to last year and they were able to go through and they were undefeated. And except you go back when he was a first-time starter and McCarthy only threw 2 picks in an undefeated season. Now he ended up throwing 3 when you tacked on the Big Ten championship game. And then, you tack on 2 more that he had in the college football semifinal. But the first 12 games in the regular season, undefeated, 2 interceptions. In both of them, one, I thought the Penn State one was a fluke. And trying to squeeze one into the when you're down in the red zone, throwing it into the end zone, trying to get Roman Wilson, trying to stick it in there. I didn't mind that one. So I don't know if you have an inevitable 4 or 5 because he only had 2 through 12 games. So that was a pretty clean year. And I would say after you watched the Maryland game, and there was a throw in the second half of the Maryland game where the Terp player picked it off, but his foot did catch the sideline. So it didn't go down as an interception, obviously. But it was close. It was really close. But we're going to start talking about close plays. We could be here all day. He was loose. The game, the loose with the ball, fumbling on the ground. What he had 2 that he lost, and then they're recovered. So you get a little bit lucky there. It wasn't like he just dropped it on the ground and he recovered. One of them was bouncing down here, and then even the next week. So he looked like he got a lot better against Iowa because he came out rolling against Iowa and played magnificent. But now that I think about it, there was another one that was fumbled by McCarthy that went going down to his own goal line, and I think Donovan Edwards had to dive on it. But after that, I don't remember another JJ fumble. So he got used to that speed of the game. He protected the ball. Michigan undefeated season, and now that he's gone through it, you'd never want to say give 2 pick sixes to the other team because that's a recipe of how you get upset in a big game. And that was part of it, why they got upset. But, he'll learn from that. And I would expect a great season from McCarthy. Okay. One thing that when you take a look at JJ, they ended up, that's not JJ. That's Sharon Moore. Brooke Fletcher. She had a good game. She should be mentioned as having a good game. JJ ended up 7 of 10 with the 1 interception that we watched, 84 yards and a touchdown. Meaningless stats, spring game stats, but something, 4 months after the season to look at. Don't forget, join the Maize and Blue review today. You want to know about the portal? You want to know more about Olivier Kamwu from Tennessee? Well, you get in there. Henschke, every couple hours, is updating something in regards to now it seems like the transfer portal. He was yesterday. And if he's not doing it with the transfer portal for basketball, he's looking at recruiting in football. Plenty to get to and to know over there. And, you need to do something over the next 5 months to keep yourself entertained. If you're a big-time Michigan fan, this show only goes for about an hour every day. Henschke's out there 24 hours a day, it seems like, on the Maize and Blue review today. Michigan.rivals.com. Couple things that I wanted to point out about McCarthy. Missed last spring, so I like that. Going back and just reviewing this tape while I was doing it, I remembered that I was listening to Jake Butt, even in the first series. He's like, we don't know how long J.J. McCarthy's playing. They don't need to play him at all. This isn't for him. He doesn't need to. You know who always wanted to play exhibition games, who always wanted to take every snap in the preseason, and the coach basically had to drag him off the field? Tom Brady. Tom Brady wanted the reps. He wanted to be in there. J.J. McCarthy wanted spring football. Now, I didn't ask him that, but he's in there. He's getting snaps. He's getting reps. And, I like that. I didn't like that he necessarily threw a pick or, threw into some hot coverage, but it was probably good, even if you didn't like it, for him to do that and then come back and go through all that. Everything you do there is that experience. And now going into his second year, he's got 13 starts under his belt. I didn't realize until I looked today, an all Big Ten honoree academically. Leadership, and he's smart, and he is sharp. Those are good things to take a look at. Here's something else, a picture that was sent to me today, and it's a good picture. You've got in the photo, if you're listening to the podcast, I'll have to walk you through it. You've got the Michigan hockey coach, Brandon Naurato. Next to Naurato is the Hobie Baker Award winner, Adam Fantilli, who just cashed in last Friday and won the Hobie Baker, which is the equivalent to the Heisman in hockey. So Michigan had that. In the middle of this picture, this big fella is a Michigan wrestler, a heavyweight, who I believe went undefeated this year and won Michigan's first ever Hodge Trophy, which is given to the most outstanding wrestler in college. It's the equivalent of the Hobie and the Heisman. So Michigan has won the Hobie, they have won the Hodge, and they have now are sitting there, and it makes you think about the Heisman. And this young man is named Mason Paris. That's it. The big fella in the middle. I was going to say he looks like a wrestler, but I don't know. He's so big, he really doesn't look like a wrestler. When I think of wrestlers, I think like his coach, Sean Bourmet, more, stockier, smaller guys. I think that I wouldn't mind seeing what, maybe give Mike Elston a shot and put him at defensive tackle. And then all the way out here to the right is the president, who likes sports. It's Santa Ono. And they don't have the trophies with them, but Hobie, Hodge, and maybe the Heisman. That's where I'm sitting, ladies and gentlemen. I'll go through the last few. Get your feedback in here. So we start with Mark, who's talking about it's hard to win championships without great games and great teams. I'm with you. JJ will take a massive leap this year. That's from TW. What would a massive leap look like? It would look really good. I do think JJ uses his legs a little bit more, probably not in the first 3 games, but after that, I could see him doing it. Andres, it's the best hour of his work day. I like to hear that. Richard wants to know how the dog is. He's doing great. Thanks, Richard. People that don't know, he's a now 10-year-old German Shepherd, along with a Husky and Malamute mix. But when he's got to go to the bathroom, he's got to go. And because he works pretty well with our goats that are running free right now, except that if I'm out there, I don't like to leave the dog and the goats unsupervised, because the goats, one of them will use his horns and poke him. And I don't like that. JJ will make it to New York. I like that kind of talk. Mark says it's really only 5 to 6 meaningful games, and you can't make too many errors. I was astonished that Cade beat OSU after that interception, but 1 mistake, maybe 2, and you can still win. Not 2 INTs. Yeah, let me go over the top. Not 2 pick sixes and a red zone fumble. Yeah, it was 5 plays that they made in the Fiesta Bowl. The 2 pick sixes, the fumble on the goal line, the Philly special, and the 76-yard 3rd and 7 touchdown by Quentin Johnston. Sorry. Yeah, no, you're right. TW says Nebraska fans are sick that Sprague committed to Michigan. They had him on campus. Yeah, well, recruiting's tough. They'll still be going after him. Maybe they can get their money together, and it's a commitment. Let's wait and see. Now, I think he's good with Michigan. Count 22's disappointed with hockey. I get that. Nebraska should go back to the Big 12. Wolverine hair. Let's see if I noticed that. He's got Wolverine here. Fantilli? That's what you're talking about? Mark, that's how good Michigan is. Andres with a picture of Santa. Paris can thank Purdue for the upset of all world. JJ should have looked better, in my opinion. You're talking about in the spring game? Okay. Yeah, like I look at it like this: like you want the guys to go out there and just look. I'm not say perfect every time. Look great, look good. JJ's still young, and I'll say it again. You don't want necessarily somebody to stub their toe or make some mistakes, and you lose a little confidence and everything else. But like what spring's for, and I look at it like OT, like spring training. There's a lot of pitchers, you talk to them and they get roughed up during the spring, and then you talk to them. They'll be in the clubhouse, and you talk to them in April, May, and you say, yeah, well, you really turn things around because you're pitching well, and they say you're just working on things. You throw a curveball in certain situations you want to see, and with McCarthy, who knows? Maybe he wanted to. I don't know. We'd have to walk down and have him sit in here, what he was looking at, why, what was up? It was just one of those things with the ball slipping out of his hands. Why is he throwing into, double coverage when the guy's not even open? I don't know. He had a little bat or something on it. The other one, it was the call, so he just wanted to see how the receiver would react. Who knows? But I'm all right with those things, and it's like because of the spring, you're working on your stuff, and it's a little bit like if you're an undefeated team in basketball. There's the thought like you probably want to lose one because then it refocuses you and everything else. I never really prescribed to that, but once it happens, you get it because then you do. You've gone through that. You know what it's like to lose. And, right here, if JJ just would have went out there and would have just performed flawlessly in the spring game, looked like he did on those two throws or the one down there, he goes 10 for 10 in the spring game with a touchdown and nobody touches him. He might, it's going to be human nature. He's just going to sit back and say, when he's meditating and he's thinking about it, even though he wants to take that thought, he wants to move on from it, that thought's going to be in there like, you're perfect. You got it. Now the thought is going to be like, you got things to work on. Stay the course, all those things. So tough position to go through OT, but I think he's going to be okay. JJ for Heisman. We've got two more. Some wrestling thoughts from Mark TW. JJ's O-line couldn't block Stewart initially in the spring game, thus they couldn't get it going. I don't read too much into the spring game as he did look great on the last drive. There you go, TW. There you go. And Mark with the final word on hockey. The Canadian juniors beat the Minnesota high schoolers, 25 of the best 25 high schooler teams from all of Minnesota. Who knew, Mark? This pod was in Mark's wheelhouse. I knew that he liked football. And in fact, I put the film of JJ up there because Mark was talking about JJ going through his reads and asking the question. And I thought, I don't know, maybe. So that's where the idea came from. But then putting hockey and wrestling out there, Mark must have been like, my God, this is the dream podcast. Because obviously he knows his wrestling and he knows his hockey. A show for Mark. From Michigan Mark. Mark, do people call you Michigan Mark? How many people on there? Michigan Richard. I don't know what account 22's real name is. Michigan Andres. That didn't really have the ring to it. Oh, Michigan Martinez. But Michigan Mark, for sure. Michigan Mark, thanks so much for the ideas. Everybody have a great Tuesday. Tomorrow, the scar of the telestrator, Jim Scarcelli. Until then, everybody have a great day. So long.